I'm Warren Brown and I hope you're enjoying our tribute to Australian car design. Welcome to another episode of Shannon's Design to Driveway. No matter if you're a Ford fan or you grew up cheering Holdens across the mountain, I think we can all agree that the Chrysler Charger is firmly in the garage of Aussie icons. In this episode, we celebrate a designer not only involved with the styling of the Chrysler Charger, but also the Drifter panel van and, wait for it, the Mitsubishi Magna and Verada. Our guest designer is Dennis Nicole. Now, Dennis became the Chief of Design at Chrysler Australia and Mitsubishi Australia and joins David in the design fault.
I guess it started my late primary school years, where I actually entered a couple of drawings into the Royal Show. I really didn't know what I wanted to do when I left school. February '63, I commenced at the Keswick plant, which was the original plant off Anzac Highway in Adelaide. And I started in the pattern shop. Mainly what you're doing, you're making all the wooden patterns for the roof panels, the engine hoods, the front fenders, any of the outer panels to weld together to make a car. Brian Smythe would look for people internally. And I commenced as about March of '72. I was titled clay modeller because the adaptability from wood to clay actually was quicker in clay, because you make an error, you just put clay on and redo it. The cars that came in, the Chrysler, the Dodge, the Plymouth, the DeSoto. With the Chrysler Royal, the general manager of, I think it was engineering, suggested that why can't we put a fin on top? And it was decided that's what we're going to do. And it really did lift the back of the car. It lifted the back instead of that rolled off, droopy look of the earlier models of most cars, where it was just the deck lid rolled over. Similar to, say, some of the British cars where the Vanguards and some of the earlier cars, they had very rolled over boot lids because of the space to park their cars in. Our competitors were doing more exciting cars, the custom lines, and I can think of quite a few. The R model had the imprint of the spare wheel on the deck lid. The only feature on that car that didn't appear to resonate well with the Australian buying public. So on the S model, we deleted that, came up with a smooth deck lid. The competitors had nothing to look like that car. Yes, it's based on the big American Plymouth as well. The VF, the VG, the VH were on the American base. I think Bob Hubbock was responsible for a lot of it. The people thinking that the American teams came over, bundle of drawings under their arms, hey, this is what you're going to do. It wasn't like that. At that point, the Charger was in there. There was the next model, the VJ, and which took a horizontal theme between the applique at the back below the deck lid opening.
Chrysler's design studios had limited resources, so Brian Smythe had much of the full-scale styling work done on the Valiant and Charger models in the USA. Bob Hubbock was a key American designer in this cooperative process and mentored Dennis.
If you look at the brochures of some of the American cars of that time, the Dodge Chargers, they had a sort of a soft Coca-Cola body feeling through the rear quarter. It curved up. They wanted to keep the family image of the Charger in Australia as much as the American one. And Brian had already done a split model of the Charger where half one version and half the other. Some of the sketches that I have reflect in the Charger today. And they also wanted to make sure whatever they did, that it was still going to be an approachable, want-to-buy-it eye-candy vehicle for the Australian market. But the car needed to end. The theme of most fastback cars converted from four-door to two-door really didn't have a distinguishing feature, and the ducktail on the back really did The Ford had the very large American look rear quarter on their two-door, but it really did resonate through. I think Jack Vaughan was the guy that bought that through the agency to the fore, and boy, yeah, it was a nice piece of work. One of the kids as well, we were doing it too, you know. Hey, Charger. The Charger was built on a shoestring budget, it had to be, and it was beautifully done in a very short span of time with the team we had. When you had to start to think outside the circle on how are we going to achieve this, how are we actually going to do this, and there's no such word as can't. It didn't exist in the styling studio. I had two Chargers in my life, 318 V8 Charger 770, which was the top of the package of the Charger, an automatic, beautiful car to drive. The air deflector on the back, or the ducktail, really did work. Beautiful car, handled well. Yeah, I towed big boats with it and really enjoyed it.
On a $2 million budget, Brian Smyth and his team created an icon in the Chrysler Charger. $2 million, that's what GM would spend on updating grills and bumpers. At one point, the Charger was almost 50% of Chrysler's output. Just amazing.
When I went to America, in Detroit, in Highland Park, and worked on the VK facelift model. A great team of people to work with. A lot to learn, a lot we were doing, but it was a larger studio complex, and more than one model, one or two models, so you had a lot to see and be part of. Plymouth and the Dodge studios, they were always in sort of a contest with each other, but it was a friendly, let's get the best out. It was the same principle as what happened in Australia. They kept pretty secret from each other because they wanted to make sure that their car was going to be a winner, and yeah, they were good years, and an excellent footing to come back into Australia and continue that through my career. Brian had done like louvers on the rear applique area past the small rear quarter window. It was extended down the side of the pillar area to give it a more of a larger glass look, longer, sleeker glass look. The front grille had quite an aggressive vertical shaped theme in a dark warm grey metallic paint, but they took that right through. This applique down the side did stay with that vehicle right through to the very final model of the Charger. We needed that type of that surf vehicle, if you want to call it that, and we needed a van, more for commercial work as well. Holdens have them, have always had them. Ford, everybody's got them, and done very well. We virtually got a utility, built the framework onto the back of it. Brian did the tape line drawings on the wall while we were doing the buck, as we called it, and we clay loaded. By the time we'd done that, he had pretty much his lines in shape. Really, we only hit the clay once. We didn't have time actually to play around with it. So what he tape lined up when we stood back and looked at the side view tape line, it fitted the bill, and we just took all the data and cut the clay. The Americans did some really neat looking packages, and one of them was pretty good, but it had a really large stripe, but it made the panel van look all so high and heavy. The American theme was good, but instead of being square up the vehicle side, I angled it. I applied myself in the studio because it was a fairly big, wide, high one piece down over the side, then took up the same striping as the utility through the front door and the front fender.
Good car design always satisfies our lifestyle, and boy, did the surf culture of the 70s sell more cars. In the blink of an eye, Dennis went from designing Australian Chryslers to more sophisticated Japanese cars when Mitsubishi's name went on the front door at Tonsley Park.
It looked great, except when you stood in the front and the rear. It just looked too narrow. So the great idea was that let's put 65 millimetres down the centre of this car. And everyone thought, well, what do we do? Get a hacksaw out and cut it in halves? Well, yeah, that's about it, in essence. It was tooled up, the floor pan up, new engine hoods, new glass, new roof, new back area between the taillights, the garnish areas, bumper bars. So really it was quite a task. It was a great car. The marketing people really wanted a load carrier to compete with Holden and Ford because they had the spacious room in their wagon. The manager at that time asked me, he said, can you draw a wagon? It needed shortening, which I did do on that car to get the balance. So I did pretty much photograph type sketches, and he took them to Japan. Some of the Volvos in Europe, they were fairly steep on their rear end, squarish looking. And we chose somewhere in between, and it complemented the angles. Japan styling people and management came down to review it. We virtually just went straight ahead with that car as it was.
Coles Magna wagon design shows how inspiration can come from other designers and how they solve similar challenges, such as a Volvo.
The first time I saw one, I was actually working in South Carolina, and who the heck would you think you'd see a Mitsubishi Magna made in Australia in South Carolina? But I did. That car was really well accepted in America. It had the larger bumper bars for the impact factor. It looked good. It looked longer. It had a more of American look with the big bumper bar.
Dennis's design challenge was to deliver a wagon with style and space that would be a winner locally and in exports markets around the world, particularly the US. It had to keep Mitsubishi's Australian production lines running, so no pressure there.
I really didn't know what I wanted to do when I left school, you know. It certainly didn't want to be a rocket science. In a way, we did do rocket science with some of the things we did do. You learnt these things that I'm only thinking of now, and sitting in a die at night time, and you'd sit in there grinding away, and you had big blocks that would support the upper part of the die, which probably weighed 10 tonne or more. Took that to the drawing office. We all took something. The apprentices through a company take it through with them. Start off as a pattern maker and to end up as manager of styling. Wow. Loved it.
Thanks, David, and hey, Charger! Dennis Nicole is another unsung hero of Australian car design. To think Dennis was in the pattern shop, now that's a very long time ago. And just when he thought his career had peaked with the last Chrysler Valiant at Tonsley Park, a completely new world of Japanese-inspired design emerged and led to Dennis shaping the Mitsubishi Magna and Verada. Dennis Nicole firmly deserves his place in our celebration of Australian car design. We hope you enjoyed meeting Dennis in this episode of Shannon's Design to Driveway. In this episode, we meet Holden designer Phil Zmood and his winning design for our very own Corvette, the Aussie muscle of the Holden HQ Monaro, plus Holden's ambitious plan for a rotary-powered sports coupe, the Green Lizard.
Join Warren Brown and David Burrell in the new must-watch series Shannon's Design to Driveway. Watch now on the Shannon's Club.